You are seeing the very miracle of creation. Few ever witness this event, at once both terrible and awesome. It is an ancient clash between fire and water, earth and sea. People of old have named these forces whose powers are hallowed and feared. The fire is Pele, the sea her jealous sister, Namaka Okahai. They struggle for creation and destruction, the circle of life and death. This is the story of that eternal struggle on the big island of Hawaii. The life and death of a beloved place, a town called Kalapana.
Before lava got to Kalapana, I believe that the mountain came first.
Well, I tell you, I came down, I was just stunned. Here's this lava pouring out.
It's like a giant river, like a glacier coming down, and there's no stopping it.
Flames start leaping out of the living room, and the corner of the roof collapsed at that end.
This is the worst volcano eruption I ever saw in my life.
It's heartbreaking. That's a whole childhood that's gone there.
It's unbelievable how much mass and volume there's been.
It's not lost. We will come back. Even if we have to walk over the lava, we will come back.
In the beginning, there was Ah, the eternal light giver. Ah created Namak Okahai, the great power of the sea. But soon, Ah, the light giver, saw the seas were alone, so he aimed his great light at places far beneath the seas and freed the captive force there called Pele. Pele lifted up the lands in towering peaks high above her sister the sea, reaching to the light giver Ah, and the lands began to flourish. And to keep her lands always above her jealous sister, Pele constantly renewed them. All these were the beliefs of the people of old who found these lands, islands, still above the sea, and they named one Hawaii because of the wonders they beheld on this island. They hailed it as a place of blessed alo, or aloha, a word which means in the presence of Ah, Ah, the eternal light giver.
This current eruption of Kilauea volcano began back in 1983. Initially as a series of spectacular fissure eruptions that ran for about 5 miles along the crest of Kilauea volcano here in Hawaii. After about a month of fissure activity, the eruption settled down at a single vent. This vent later became known as Pu'u'o'o, which in Hawaiian just means hill of the o'o bird. And this vent grew in 44 high fountain eruptions and ended up building this 900-foot cone, which has no equal on either Kilauea or Mauna Loa.
But after 3 years of constant eruption, the Pu'u'o'o cone became too high to permit release of all the lava boiling up from below. In July 1986, the great power of Pele made a new vent, Kupayanaha, the mountain of mystery.
Lava is spewed continuously out of this vent since July of 1986 at a rate of about 600,000 cubic yards a day. It covers a swath anywhere from 1 to 3 miles wide and in places is over 100 feet deep.
In late 1986, this huge spread of lava, flowing now in subsurface tubes, began attacking small villages on Hawaii's coastal plain, villages like Royal Gardens and Kapa'ahu.
When the lava came, it was a spillover that came to our home. So by then, we had
you know, some of our things, we didn't take all of our things out of the home. So by then we went up and we stayed there, of course, until the house was destroyed.
In early 1990, these lava flows have moved down and continued to move down slope until they were within striking distance of the village of Kalapana.
Kalapana, a small historic Hawaiian village, lay 5 miles below the volcano on the Big Island's southeast coast. At its peak, 100 island homes fringed Kalapana's shore, and its famous landmark, Kaimu Beach, has long been beloved by all Hawaii for its picturesque setting and its brilliant volcanic black sand.
Never in my life did I, imagine that the lava would flow down to Kalapana. The last thing I just hope it wouldn't come is Kaimu Beach, the black sand beach area. To me, I always think that place is paradise.
As I stroll beneath the palm trees of black sand, swaying palms, this tropical sky charms the shores of black sand.
That's why it's famous today. But if you go back in time into the early part of the 20th century, it was a backwater. It was removed from the centers of power and the centers of economics in Hawaii. People owned their land, and most of what they lived on, particularly their food, they got themselves by fishing and by farming.
This is how the Hawaiians lived in the days. And I remember my dad used to go fishing all the time, and he used to bring home fish. And we as children, at home, we'd go up to the uplands and we'd plant taro.
Families like the Hawaiians are among Kalapana's oldest, with a heritage on this special land predating the white missionaries. Ka'ohulani Sweezy was born in Kalapana and raised 6 children in her family home here.
That was my grandfather's place. At one time, the community was mostly Hawaiians, and they only speak Hawaiian.
That is unique to us. And whatever they have, they're always sharing with your next neighbor.
The Keali'i Ho'omalus are another of Kalapana's native families. At one time, they owned over 500 acres of land here, handed down by the old Hawaiians when aloha was always a way of life.
The most important thing when I was growing up, my grandma always stressed that everything must come from inside, from the heart.
Dorothy Kamaching and her husband Clarence raise orchids on their Kalapana farm. Their families also date back here for generations.
It wasn't what we had, it was how you gave it. Whatever you had, you'd share with people.
I shouldn't exaggerate the isolation of Kalapana. There were a couple of churches there as well, and just about everybody would have gone to one of those 2 churches.
Both churches faced each other across Kalapana's main street. On one side, the Mauna Kea Congregational Church, founded by the missionaries in 1823 and built by members of the Church Faithful, who swam ashore carrying the wood beams that were brought by a ship from Honolulu.
I was raised by my grandfather and grandmother, and coming to this church was the only thing I knew.
Across the street, the Star of the Sea Catholic Church, built in 1930. It's called the Painted Church for its unique murals painted by various artists.
I grew up in that church. In the late 50s, my grandfather and I and all my cousins, we went to church there.
So the love of this place is really deep. Our roots goes very deep in this church. Our ancestors, our family. So is Kalapana.
And I believe that we are all one, irregardless of religion.
And everyone in Kalapana, religious or not, also patronized another local institution, Yamaguchi's Drive-In and General Store, operated by its one and only ageless proprietor, Walter Yamaguchi.
I am a churchman myself. I believe in God. I believe in Medimpele. Nobody tell me. It's all come to me, and I believe. That's all I can say, my friend.
I guess for people on this island and for people in Hawaii generally, Kalapana has seemed important. It seemed a special place because it still had the reputation of being a Hawaiian community. Then in the middle 60s, things really changed because subdivisions began to be built.
See, my brother sold, and those people had turned it into a subdivision, and people were buying, those land.
We were the first Hollies, I think, in that neighborhood at all. If there were any more, I didn't know.
Ruth Duff began Kalapana's first subdivision in the 1960s. It would be called Kalapana Gardens.
And we came over with a couple from Newport Beach. We were living in Newport Beach, California. And it was a rainy day. It wasn't even a nice day. But it was so beautiful down there. And I told my husband, I said, we've got to have this. So he said, you're right. So we made an offer on it, and we bought 600 lots.
In 1967, Ruth and her late husband, Jack, built their own house in the subdivision. It would become a local landmark.
My mother and I were on vacation here, and we'd been up to the volcano and came down this little old road. It was a hot day, and we saw this A-frame house, and we thought it was a store. We thought we'd stop for Coke, whatever, and here this lady, Holly lady, came to the door.
Evelyn Bailey built her home here in 1973, the year she bought property in Ruth Duff's subdivision.
And she said, well, I'll show you a few lots if you'd like to see them. So I bought them from her, from Ruth Duff.
So that's how it went. And we sold the lots and named the names of the streets, and we put the park in. I chose the place for the park.
So that by the 70s and the 80s, most of the people who came into the subdivisions were haoles, people from the mainland.
Well, of course, Mary and Todd Dresser were one of those, and they were married there on the Black Sand Beach.
What made Kalapana Gardens so special for us was all the loving people there. And I had never been anywhere where I had felt so welcome and comfortable immediately.
I remember when I first came in about 1976. I met my wife, and I was building a custom home, and I brought her back with me.
And I'll never forget the day that I pulled up to Hawaii, to Walter Yamaguchi's store in Kalapana, and two Hawaiian ladies came up to me and gave me the most gorgeous plumeria lei that I had ever set eyes on.
People were so warm and loving and worked together. In the early days of the community, we'd all share time on each other's houses.
And then Lehua came along in 1981, and Angelina came along in 1984.
We'd go logging to go get ohia trees for the posts, for the foundations. And then after that, you go work in someone else's.
My husband and I had just gotten married. We were young, and we decided we'd like to build a house here. And we could just barely do it. We knew we'd have to build our own house.
It's just a dream that, it's better than the movies because you're really doing it. It's not make-believe.
We had beautiful cedar walls and beam ceilings. I had never had my own house before. And I thought I couldn't have been happier if it was a palace. It was beautiful. And there was no danger of volcanoes then either, or at least not any that we really could perceive.
And coming from California, where the price of land was untouchable, we couldn't afford anything there. What we stepped into here at 19 years of age was comparable to buying a car in California. We could have bought a car in California, we could have bought property a quarter mile from the beach in Hawaii. You know, I mean, what would you do?
I, John Morgan Clark, take you, Melinda Marie Jackson.
I, John Morgan Clark, take you, Mindy Marie Jackson.
Well, John and I, we got married at our home in Kalapana Gardens last Christmas Eve. We just finished the house.
We were working on that house since '85, and we didn't just get it completed until right before our marriage ceremony, which was in '89.
I'm Mindy Marie Jackson, take you, John Morgan Clark, to be my lawfully wedded husband.
I'm Melinda Marie Jackson, take you, John Morgan Clark, to be my lawfully wedded husband.
It was a beautiful day in Kalapana. That day, I swam at Kaimu that day, 2 hours before I got married. And I remember being really afraid to leave on our honeymoon because at the time there were flows coming down in January and early February threatening Kalapana. So I just remember I just prayed for our house to be there when we got home in March, and it was.
You make me right.
That was the town then, and the volcano was up there, and it was always up there off and on. And I wasn't afraid of it. I wasn't afraid of it coming down or anything. I never felt that it ever would. I thought, well, it'll go down and stop, but it didn't.
As I gaze upon the lovely shores of black sand, lights its splendor reflects the beauty of the sea.
The day it actually started, I'll never forget. My mother called me about 2 o'clock in the morning. She said, look out the window. And I looked out the window to this monstrous glow and this huge atomic cloud over the mountain. Because right then I knew that the whole community was in danger.
In late March, lava flows resumed again on the eastern side of the flow field, and this time entered the western edge of Kalapana Gardens subdivision for the first time since 1986. And that's when the inundation of Kalapana began in earnest.
As Kilauea's fire began attacking Kalapana for the first time in 2 centuries, homeowners could only watch in shock and awe. Experts from around the state began converging on Kalapana to offer assistance.
Probably the time when it burns the first home, I think that's when everybody, it really strikes home. Also, usually when the lava crosses the road, that's always a very good indicator to people. People really feel very strongly about that. Anytime it burns something man-made, I think people begin to go, oh, wait a minute, this could really happen to us.
The advance of the flows was very slow during middle to late April, but extremely steady. They covered a front that was several hundred yards wide and essentially moving down 3 or 4 streets simultaneously.
And then literally they swept through Kalapana Gardens, and it just kind of happened all at once.
It was a real quiet area now. My house was just on the edge of the earth, we'd call it. We were given an evacuation notice where we could be inundated by lava. And We took out things that were special to us out of our house, things that we knew that could not be replaced.
And I said that, okay, we're going to go ahead and pack this up, but I know that it's going to stop again, like it did in middle 1986.
And I was finding myself going back there at nighttime, just sitting there by myself in the house. Staying there till like 2 in the morning, listening to the explosions, watching the different fires break out around the neighborhood. It was kind of strange. It was alluring me there. I loved my house. I loved my home.
I had dreams about that Angelina and I were playing and the lava came and it buried us. Then it wasn't anymore. We weren't anymore. And that's one of my dreams.
That's when it became a reality. It became very emotional at that time, and I wasn't sure if I wanted to go to the house and see it go, or if I needed to stay right where I was. And at that time, it was real hard. I made about a 30-minute decision, and then Todd asked me to please join him.
Then, at about 8:40, the porch caught on fire, and at 10:10, the house was down. It was all over with.
It was pretty sad leaving there because I didn't want it to burn.
For some, it's very, very swift. Lava comes in the yard, you in your heart accept the finality of it, and it takes you home. But for others, it was so slow because it would come in the yard and stop, and come into the yard and stop.
But once it got into Kalapana Gardens, literally every day there was a home being burned.
And stunned residents could only watch helplessly as their homes, their memories were consumed. Neighbors gathered to comfort each other and to witness the beginning of a death march.
So we became involved in a 24-hour-a-day visual, watching the lava slowly enter town. And it was an agonizing flow. It was so slow, it acted, one quote was, like a glacier.
It's like a giant river, like a glacier coming down, and there's no stopping it. And the heat's rising off it right now. And it makes me very sad.
It was always such a lovely place. We were proud of the house that we had built ourselves. I don't think there's another place like it at all.
I believe in, I guess, Madame Pele, and she has to create what she's done and keep creating. But I feel sad in my heart that something that I created is gone, and that a lot of people that I know have suffered too.
It's sad that it's gone. It's sad, even more disturbing that so many people now are left homeless.
Well, I tell you, I came down, I was just stunned, really. I just couldn't believe that that could happen. Here's this lava pouring out, but I had shower trees and poinciana trees and monkey pod trees and Hayden mango trees in there, and I bought a lot of stuff to put in there. Had a nice fence around the Hawaiian wall the Hawaiians built for me, and around my house. Planters and things, they were all built by Hawaiians, and it was awful. It was just terrible to think a house you'd been in for 23 years. And I kept up the house and the grounds and the whole area. So, anyway, That's my second home. And a friend of mine who planted them said the plumerias were all in bloom. And it's hard for me to think of going anywhere else because I like it there. It's hard. So, I don't know.
Well, everybody, this is home for them, you know. And when this destruction comes like this here, especially when the fire leaves you nothing, it's telling you something.
By the end of April, Kilauea's lava had reached the homesteads of Kalapana's oldest families, including the house once owned by Luis Keali'iho'omalu's own father.
That's where I was brought up. I feel bad because we helped him to build up that house. I felt sorry, like sad. It's gone.
Ayala obele Hawaii ea, ke ha'amai la I mahugele ea. Ayala obele Hawaii ea, ke ha'amai la I mahugele ea.
By the 1st of May, lava had already taken 45 homes in Kalapana alone, more than half the community gone. As the flow continued, Hawaii's Governor John Waihee made a personal fact-finding tour. He was led through the disaster scene by the one man who best knew the agony of Kalapana, the Big Island's respected civil defense chief, Harry Kim.
There are two things that causes change in the greatest way, in the fastest way, and that is war and that is natural disasters. And this is a natural disaster that forces change dramatically.
The governor's visit resulted in a call to the White House. Within days, the entire community was declared a federal disaster area, and Kalapana had found worldwide attention.
And the sad part is it's continuing. There's no let up in sight. Just going to affect more and more properties, more and more people.
As the flow continued from high on Kilauea's flank, it passed under natural skylights. Through these, geologists measured the lava's speed and volume.
When you're out here working on the flows as a geologist, you obviously look at things from a factual sense, you know, but it's very difficult to look at something so awe-inspiring and not feel moved in some way by it, which I have been.
Before lava got to Kalapana, I believe wholeheartedly, period, that the mountain came first. And anything we do, anyone comes here, says, hey, I want to live here, this is paradise, I like it, has to know, hey, I'm living on top of an alive volcano. It might just come flow over me as much as it flows down the road. Well, it was obvious that there's no way to establish some kind of line like that people do invest everything they have emotionally when they build a home.
We were the last ones to be evacuated from that subdivision. We weren't in trouble really till the day my house burned, May 1st. But I was pretty well prepared for it. And I was taking plants up to my friend's place and giving this away and giving that away. And then the night before my house burned, it had crossed the street in front of our house, and it was, in fact, at the poles, my utility poles by my driveway, were afire, and the brush was burning close to my driveway. And then the next morning I came back down and went in, and the lava was clear up into my yard and burned the corner. The house started the house afire, the corner by the driveway. But I stayed there and watched it.
Ayala obele bele Hawaii ke ha'amai la I maungele Ayala o bele Hawaii ke ha'amai la I maungele
From mid-April until now, in early May, the lava marched steadily across the Kalapana Gardens subdivision and then into the town of Kalapana proper. It circumvented the two church sites and the general store in Kalapana and has moved here to where we are, right in front of the beach park here.
And as it came through this area, it basically came through in river form as opposed to that slow creeping lava flow. And it was a different story entirely.
Never in my life have I dreamed that it would happen. My son was down there. My two sons was down there, and because they slept down there. And when that happened, they called my daughter, and my daughter called me. Not good to look at it, but I'm glad that I have the strength. It's sad, but there's nothing we can do. You lost, that's it.
When you see and experience something as awesome as a volcano, that mankind cannot duplicate under any circumstances. It is so awesome that you grab for and to lean on the belief that there is a power in control of this. And I believe there is a power in control. I just don't know what that power is.
The lava started approaching the church from the area of the Kalapana subdivision. That was Kalapana Garden subdivision, and a decision had to be made whether to move the church or not. And luckily, we were able to gather all the bodies and the people of all denominations, of all colors, to come and help to move the church.
By now, Kalapana's few remaining residents were taking drastic steps. At least half a dozen homeowners had already hired crews to remove entire houses and store them on higher ground. As Kalapana's Catholic Church members prepared to do likewise, their neighbors at the Mauna Kea Congregational Church decided instead to watch and pray.
To me, the place will always be here. It's what we're going to make of it, or the generation after us going to make of it.
When we put everything in the hands of God, and I look at all our walls, and God did not touch the walls, there is something for us in Kalapana. It's not lost. We will come back. Even if we have to walk over the lava, we will come back.
Like I've said, we've just kept it all in God's hands, and it still is.
My name is Solomon Payo. I work for the Department of Transportation and had a telephone answer written on my desk saying, "I need your help now. Please come down to Kalapana." So I did. I just went right in and called up my friends who had equipment that they really needed.
The first thing I recognize is the speed of the flow. You know? I realized, and I checked with Harry Kim, and he says, you know, George, what you're working with is you might not get it out in time. If it gets to the point where I say abandon, you make sure your equipment is in a position where you can just drive out and leave the church back.
So a lot of us that were there say a lot of prayers, you know, spiritual prayers that say, Kelly could slow down for a while, give us enough time to get out.
A lot of the women pitched in, and we cooked, you know, pots of food to take down there, and we fed anywhere from 20 to 50 people, I would say.
And it seems like the night came so fast. We worked right through the night, and I don't know, it's the first time I ever see a night go so fast.
By 5 o'clock Friday morning, the lava had gone past Walter's store, around the back, past the Mauna Kea church, past another house there, and was heading towards the road. That's the kind of pressure we were dealing with.
And the Good Spirit did help us. After we got it loaded up and ready to pull, everything was set to go, but we had to get an order. And when Harry Kim said, "You ready? Let's pull," we all came out. The church came out beautifully. It took us only 45 minutes, and the lava covered the road. It was amazing.
My crew alone could never have done it under those conditions. We needed everybody's help.
But I also can say, brothers that work together and have good, true spirit can move even the mountain. Also, no man is an island. Each man, joy is joy to me. And this is the way we should work around the world.
I never made so much money. And the first time in 15 years, you know, terrific. 4 times more than any time. So, gee whiz, what we gonna happen if this keep up? By golly. But she stopped right my place behind, but 75 foot, that's all. Then she went around. And I just few hours ago, I went up there and take a look, because civil defense, you can come up in it. You're the only one can come in, see. So I just came back, and here I am.
By early May, all roads in and out of Kalapana had been covered by the flow. The few structures still standing in the town were now stranded within a kipuka, a tightening circle of lava.
We had a notice that you have to pack everything if you want to. If you want to leave it, that's up to you. That's what the civil defense told us. It's okay, well, Madam they like clean, so I swept all the rubbish, make them neat. I figured they make it nice, and then I said, "So long, Madam Petty, goodbye." Then before I leave, I looked the lava. It's only about 75 feet. I could just like that. It's nice lava, and I came back. But only I feel sorry that I hope they make a special road to go to my store.
On Sunday, May 5th, Walter Yamaguchi made a pilgrimage. He would advance to the leading edge of the flaming lava flow, bearing traditional offerings of tea leaves and distilled spirits. The offerings were for Madame Pele.
She will never take my store, I can say that. Never. I predict that. She will never take my store.
The sad factor here is the loss of the land, the loss of near 30,000 acres of land, and the lifestyle associated with the land. The lifestyle of the Hawaiian people here.
Throughout that Sunday, the total evacuation of Kalapana continued for those who could still reach their homes. Even civil defense officials were forced to retreat from their own beach park command post in the wake of the advancing lava. Abandoned now and completely cut off were the Mauna Kea Church and Walter's General Store, and perhaps a dozen or more individual homes.
There's no water and the fumes are bad, but everything's still in the house, hoping that one day we could go in and take it out.
I guess my children wanted to get the house because they grew up there and they loved it, they enjoyed it. And they wanted to move the house, so I told them no.
I think it would have been difficult. And I guess at that point, I had already said goodbye to it, and so it really didn't matter.
I accept what is happening as natural. I hurt when I see the way they're going to hurt people. But if I step back from it all, I know this is the only way this earth was created.
My husband and I went back there yesterday, and as we sat there in the house and out in the yard, it was beautiful. I just reminisced out there a few minutes, and I felt so relieved.
200 years from now, or 100 years from now, there will be other people and generations that will be blessed right here, because the land will be back to whatever time will make it, with the trees and the dirt and the gentleness of the flowers and the wind.
If Kaimu is spared, you know, we'll still have the bay, and we'll still have some of the people of Kalapana around us.
It seemed, in some ways, like a miracle. Pele, the destroyer, had now become Pele, the creator.
What we're seeing here today is the first entry of lava into the ocean during this particular flow. This is the first step in the growth of an island such as Hawaii, when the lava enters the ocean and actually builds land outward.
And those who watched this miracle of nature, of fire and water, Pele and her sister Namaka Okahai, witnessed the wonders of ancient powers, old as time and the universe.
It's just incredible. You can never, textbooks can't describe what you're seeing adequately.
This current flow is only about an hour old, and so it hasn't built very far outward into the bay here at Kalapana. If this was a larger channel, although this one is fairly significant, being several yards wide, and it was sustained, it can add hundreds of acres, and we've had hundreds of acres added to the island during this eruptive episode so far.
And so, on the 7th day in May 1990, nature renews the age-old story of creation. But this day would not end without another miracle for the town and the people of Kalapana.
This, however, has occurred just as the lava flow has quit being supplied from the upslope source, and this particular episode appears to be over.
It's taken 8 years. Slowly and surely, it has completely buried the whole area.
There isn't a Kalapana anymore. There's only Kaimu. So the change is heartbreaking.
Finally, it was over, for now. In 8 years, 140 homes were destroyed and 30,000 acres of land were buried. Kaimu Black Sand Beach was spared from destruction, as were other town landmarks, plus the dozen or more homes, all surrounded by the smoldering slab of lava. Beneath it, an entire town had all but vanished in a mere 6 weeks. The property damage alone exceeded $60 million.
The loss of the houses is a drop in the bucket compared to the loss of the community.
I know that there's a lot more beautiful places here in Hawaii, but there will never be another Kalapana Gardens.
The most that I'll miss is the land, because there's value in it. Land that brings family together.
no city lights, so you see the sky and the stars. And I could hear the surf every night, you know, from my house.
Hearing the water, feeling the wind, smelling the flowers, and being accepted and totally wanted in this community.
I guess the thing that I remember so well was the songs we used to sing together.
With a little sunshine and a little rain, beautiful Kalapana, we will meet again.
3 days after the pause, which seemed to spare what little remained of Kalapana, the volcano's vent reopened. The renewed flow cascaded down the slope once again, and within weeks, it totally obliterated virtually every last structure still standing in Kalapana, including homes, the historic Mauna Kea Church, and, holding out until the last, Walter Yamaguchi's store. By late summer, the lava took Kaimu, the beloved black sand beach.
I used to swim out there all the time. I swam out there 2 days ago when the lava was flowing into the water.
Entombed at last in its fiery grave, Kalapana has found a place now in the history of Hawaii and forever in the hearts of its people.
Anybody that was fortunate enough to live there will remember it. No question.
I helped my mom plant some banana trees, and I want to go back. I want to go back there so bad.
There is something for us in Kalapana. We will come back. Even if we have to walk over the lava, we will come back.